say by at least 2024, 25, a fraction that is 10 to 20% of the existing medical network can easily be done by drone, a nationwide network, for sure.
So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, greetings of the day to all our listeners and viewers around the world. Welcome to another exciting episode of Airworthy Talks by Udaan Aviation Academy. And today I have got with us Mr. Sid Venkat, or Mr. Siddharth Venkat, I should say. Sid is something which we say in general. So Sid is Managing Director India and Global Accounts Head for EVA. Along with that, Sid had worked for prestigious drone organizations like Antworks and IdeaForce. And Sid has someone who has been closely associated with different verticals of the drone sectors. And as we all know, as to how the drone sectors have grown to become a sector which was previously seen as a hobby, but now is considered to be a career sector out there. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Sid. Sid, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Subhashis and Team Udaan for having me on this talk. I've been following this Airworthy Talks, one or two podcasts I have listened, quite interesting ones, and I'm quite happy to be part of one of your talks here now. Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you, Sid. The pleasure is ours. And looking at your LinkedIn profile, you are a man on a mission. You are always on the road. You are sometimes across this country or that country, speaking with ex-CEOs and talking about the world of drones, making things happen, in quite a dynamic way. So I just wanted to start by knowing what is the day in the life of a drone consultant like you, or what is the day in the life of a Sid like?
Okay, super. You've been kind, but yes, I have consciously made a decision to be part of the European activity, because when I made this decision, in my opinion, Europe was the forefront of all the technologies related to drones. Later on, I found that even China and then US have considerable role to play. But then my decision led to a massive jump in the career direction that I went in a very positive way. A usual day looks like let's take a usual week instead. I have calls with at least 4 different UAV companies, half of them from India, half from outside of India. And more often in the countries outside of India, the drone companies, I get to talk with Indians working in the company. Wow. So at least 4 to 5 different companies, having a conversation with them in general about the drone industry, which is what I have been doing in the last 6 months. And you get to know a lot about what these people do in their own country and what is the regulatory environment like, and what is the pace at which drone industry is developing in relation to the other countries, in relation to the previous calls that I've taken, and make a mental calculation. And then talk to them about potential opportunities in the drone industry. In the initial days, it was more about satisfying a supply tender, a military tender, a mapping tender, and or providing an end-to-end solution. Not all of them just require a drone, but then they need a solution. The solution would comprise of individual companies that, when put together, the customer would be looking for that kind of a solution. So nowadays, it has become more heating up in mergers and acquisition. Right. In the last 1 month alone, I counted like 5 or 6 companies that have had anywhere between $2 million to $6 million investment or acquisition money. And they are operating not only in India, but also in countries like South Korea and in Europe. Anywhere, all of this industry is starting to heat up And one possible indication is the amount of M&A activity happening.
Right.
So,
right.
And then most importantly, at the end of the day, stitching together all the information that I've collected in a way that benefits the company that I work in and then the industry that I work for.
Right.
That's how the week looks like.
Wide and happening week. You talked about so many elements of drone, right, from the technical side to the commercial side. And it comes as a natural curiosity as to when did you first find that spark in the drone industry? Did it started as a hobby, or was it an obvious career choice? Because when I ask students out there, they generally see drone as something which you fly, take some aerial shots, and that's it. That's an hobby, or you use it for cinematography purposes in your friend's wedding, and then that's how the career is out there. But what was your moonshot moment where you thought, okay, is this a hobby or is this a career, and I should, sort of proceed in this?
It was a suggestion that I got from someone random on a lift that I got between Kanpur to Lucknow.
Wow.
It's a suggestion that one guy put in my mind, and I took it seriously. Well, the basic interest comes from the fact that I wanted to be a pilot from my childhood.
Right.
And I was a pilot working for Indian Navy. I flew a fixed wing aircraft, the PC-7 Mark II, and later on graduated to helicopters. So I was out and out an aviation guy, wanted to fly aircraft. And then once my military career was over, I wanted to continue somehow the flying passion inside me. And for me, I wanted to also explore futuristic career opportunities, not to just become a pilot and keep, getting a CHPL or a CPL and fly a commercial jetliner was an obvious choice. But then when I took a travel along the northern part of the country, there was this incident when one random guy who gave me a lift between Kanpur and Lucknow told me that, you have an aviation background and India is coming up with the drone industry. Why don't you give it a try? I said, why not? I have the flying skills and being in the military, the Navy teaches you a lot of leadership skills. Good combination to either continue the way that I've gone, which is to fly, continue commercial airlines, or to try something new. I took the latter. I wanted to, I contacted, at that point of time, there were like 7 or 8 prominent companies. After 7 or 8 companies, when you go and select the page 2 of your Google search, which is not
not many people they go actually, right?
Yeah, very rare. Okay. And that was how many very less companies back then, but now everyone every Tom, Dick and Harish is starting a new drone company. So many now there are companies in stealth mode, but back then very few companies, and I spoke to 5 of them. 3 of them gave me an interview and I got selected in 2, and I chose IdeaForge. And at that point of time, IdeaForge had a vacancy in their business development team. So a small pivot, but then I continued in that direction. One experience led to the other. When I was in Amsterdam Drone Week, this is when I went for my master's in Italy. I did an internship because of mandatory educational requirements according to the Italian university requirement. I did an internship with a Japanese drone company. Took care of, because I was in business development, they asked me to do marketing in the Middle East and South Asia region. But this was the first time my exposure to international marketing, cross-country trade.
Right.
With that experience led to another one. I went to Amsterdam Drone Week to, again, be Amsterdam being the logistics heart. Lots of companies were there, European and Asian companies. There was a conversation between the COO of Antwerp Technology and myself. And he told me that he is looking for someone to take care of the European marketing for Antwerp.
Okay.
And then that is when I said, okay, I'll do it for business development. And then with regards to drones back in 2018, it's just not marketing or business development. You need to go and interact closely with civil aviation authorities.
Right. Yeah.
And so part of my job, even at Idea Forge and at Antwerp, was constant interaction with civil aviation authorities. So I was able, at that point of time, and even now, China has advanced in terms of operational experience that they have in an intra-city drone delivery network.
Okay.
So that company was among the top 3 companies, and they sit in the subcommittee that decides the regulatory draft for the future regulations in China. So getting that learning and passing it on to Finnish Civil Aviation Authority or the Italian ones was a great experience. You get to closely interact with Civil Aviation Authority and tell them in which direction the rule must progress. So the local or the nationwide drone cluster flourishes. Right. From learning this in a B school to actually being part of it was a wonderful experience. And then one thing led to another. Again, the term with Antwerp ended, and soon I started consulting for Polish drone companies or Spanish companies that wanted to expand across the world. Now, Spain I was consulting for a Barcelona-based company, and there they had a requirement to expand into Latin America. Obviously, they have the language advantage. But then Latin America had not decided or to not allow BB-LOS flights.
Okay.
So it was allowed. And so the company, although a European company, they can and only demonstrate their flights capabilities in BB-LOS conditions. Hence, they chose Latin America. And so I started developing my network in Latin America and Africa, East and West Africa. Sort of a network across the world. Then in one of the companies that I interacted with when I was part of Antwerp was my current company, EVA. So there they had a requirement and they said, we need someone to take care of India and then also have a general sales across the globe. And that is when I started working for EVA. Now, luckily for me, in the last 2 months, India's drone regulation has been heating up. Very good activity that you can see. People are starting to invest. People are starting to explore. Everyone wants to have a piece in the pie.
Absolutely right. And I think listening to your conversation, I mean, from looking the companies which you have worked for and your career as well, you definitely see you and the companies which you have worked all have gone north. I mean, look at Idea Forge today. They are picking up defense contracts in quite a big way. So it itself shows that how much potential the drone system has. But I also take this point from your conversation is that how rapidly things have changed in the past 2 years or so. So what flying was previously or flying a drone or the procedure of flying a drone previously is totally different now. There are a lot more stages to sort of look into. So for our listeners, can you sort of tell us as to what is the procedure to fly a drone in India, like an end-to-end procedure? What are the organizations you need to contact? What sort of technology you need to have, and so on and so on?
Yeah. So here we go. If you, in the general thumb rule is that if you are flying the drone for your own purpose, for recreational or hobby, you don't need to get license as long as the drone's weight category is below 4 kilograms. Now, even if, but on the other side, even if the drone's weight category is less, but if you're trying to make money out of your flying, which is commercial in nature, then you will have to undergo a list of requirements. It starts from basic certification. No longer you can simply take a market-ready off-the-shelf drone and fly it for a commercial reason. You need to have the certificate. That is the first good part that the regulations have come up with. So then the quality of the drone pilots in the country increases. New skills are being imparted and it is being recognized, standardized. in the next few years, we'll be having a requirement of not less than 1.5 lakh drone pilots, which we'll talk a little more in the subsequent questions. So, but then, yes, the requirement is that first you get yourself certified. And then if you want to run a company, you have a list of requirements such as the operational certification. And then if you want to become a manufacturer, then the requirements are a little different. You're setting up a manufacturing unit for a product, which can also be used as a defense tool. So there are certain requirements for that. This certification topic alone can go for an hour.
Wow.
And then we have now recent regulations which has liberalized. Earlier we used to need 16 to 20 certificates for manufacturing or for manufacturing a drone in the country. And these sometimes didn't make any sense. Like for operating a civil drone, for let's say it carries a camera, you needed to have military grade specifications to be met, which are no longer the case. You don't need such certifications have been waived off, in my understanding. You need very less certifications, but then they are needed. There are some basic standards that you need to meet. But I can tell you, it is not as difficult as it used to be last year. It's now much more simpler to run the company, to run a drone service providing company, to become an operator, to fly the drones. In all ways, it has become simpler. It can, granted, become much more simpler, but this is a major step in the right direction.
Right. So yeah, I mean, flying with all of that, obviously the government is hitting all those check boxes of making sure that things are done in the rightful manner, but at the same time making it much more user friendly as well, to have less certificate requirement. My next sort of thought to you is, you have worked across different drone markets, whether it be Europe, whether it be Latin America, Middle East. I'll particularly focus on the European market. How the drone ecosystem in the European market is different from that of India. Which of the market is much more customer friendly, etc. Yeah.
Okay. The answer to this question would have been different last month, and it's different now, and will be different the next month. That's how evolving and dynamic the regulatory environment is. In general, what you see is, it's not a simple answer. It's again a very interesting question, which can have answers that have multiple levels, different dimensions. General difference is that Europe as a whole has a framework. There is a continent level framework. So in general, if you want to operate in 26, 27 countries, what are the requirements that needs to be met? You know that if you get your drone certified in country A, it is then allowed to fly in all the other countries in the continent. It is known that it takes a lot of time, surely, but then once you get it certified, you get access to a bigger market. Therein lies your first difference. In India, if you get your drone certified, it's only applicable to Indian conditions.
Yes. Yeah.
Second thing is that the smart city government projects are more intricately linked to drones. One of the 6 pillars of the European Sustainable City Project is urban air mobility. Not only drones, but also bigger drones, drone-allied industries are getting a push there. Although they're not allowing urban flying yet, it's difficult to get the permission, but in general, let us assume that it's not something that everyone wants to do. When we start interacting with government, in Italy, in my case, I never went to the Rome city authority or Milan or Turin, which is the sustainable cities of Europe. That is, all the countries are having 2 or 3 cities that are part of this initiative. So in Italy, it is Turin, but still, as drone service provider or someone in the drone industry, we don't want to go and work with cities because incredibly difficult to get the permissions. Right. What we go and do in Italy, in Eva's case, is that I've approached a place which has a geographical difficulty. That is where you're likely to get your regulatory approvals, and it's even more beneficial if you fly above places where people don't live. For example, water pools.
Yeah.
Like how it happened in Manipur. 2 days back when we did the ICMR's commercial delivery, there we used a place with geographical difficulty to demonstrate how good a drone can be used in terms of emergency delivery. Similarly, in the case in Europe, again, in my opinion, I think cities of India would allow drone flights to happen faster than cities of Europe. But then you can never say it all evolves so fast. And then what is the other major difference is in India, cost-sensitive market. In Europe, they're ready to pay the money that you ask. They will still bargain, they'll try to reduce the price, but simply put, a costly company operating out of Switzerland will be able to provide services to another costly company like Norway or Germany. An Indian drone company, made in India product or assemble India product, can come and sell the product in Europe and operate it at a much more profitable rate. But the reverse may not be true. A made in Europe product cannot come and operate in India. I don't know if they can do it at a financially sustainable rate. Military supply tenders are different. But commercial drone operations, there again a major difference. There the general disposable income is so high, people are ready to are having the money or capacity to pay for or afford drone-based deliveries, which is a premium in India.
Absolutely right. And I mean, such has been the markets in general. I mean, you always see European markets as quality markets. It's more about quality sensitive markets. Whereas in India, it's more of a price sensitive market out here. And I think that's where the drone ecosystem also equally plays their part in quality sensitive versus price sensitive. Now, what I have seen, particularly as you mentioned, things are changing very rapidly, and then there are new terms which are coming in the market. So I would like to, sort of ask certain technical jargons to you. Could you tell us more about the ground to sky technology with respect to India? What is this all about?
Well, I think I'm the most qualified to answer that question.
There you go.
Because EVA here makes ground to sky technology. Yeah, ground to sky.
Oh yeah, there you go. Right out there.
So what you essentially mean by ground to sky technology is that simply the drone alone is not sufficient for establishing a drone ecosystem. On a metaphorical, comparative basis, let's say aircraft requires airports and then airline operator. All three are required essential components. For drones, you need a very similar setup. You have the OEM who makes the drone. You have the service provider, the DSP, the drone service provider, who operates and runs it. And then you need the drone port, where you are able to house all the drones. Aircraft, airport, drones, drone port. So the drone port is what we refer to ground to sky technology. It is where the change happens. The drone which is on the ground takes off to the sky. It is in short, drone ports are called drone infrastructure. It is a place where drones are safely housed. First, most important duty of the drone port is to house them safely. Costly equipment. And the more number of drones the drone port can store, the better it is.
Right.
Because usually they're looking at, however difficult it is, they're looking to operate in urban environment. Urban to suburban to rural area connectivity for drone delivery projects is what is looked at. So infrastructure, I mean, cost of the land when you go for rental or lease is quite high in city. So if you have an infrastructure which is able to not house one or two drones, but multiple drones, let's say 6, 10, 15, 20 drones, then that is the primary requirement of a drone infrastructure, ground-to-sky technology. The secondary one is you need to have the swarm intelligence. You have a place where you can store multiple drones, but then when they fly out in an urban environment, where are they in the 3D space? That sort of a command and control situation, the situational awareness should be shown inside this command center. The third one is the need to recharge the batteries. You need one pilot to operate it, but then where are they going to find the plug point in an urban environment? And if not, can it be run through solar energy? And if that is not available, if they want to place a drone station that automatically launches, finishes the job, comes back and then recharges itself, then do we need a landing port that is intelligent enough to charge the drone on landing? Or you need a more sophisticated robotic arm that removes old batteries and puts new batteries. That is another component of what the ground-to-sky technology should do.
Brilliant. And I see a lot of sort of companies, logistics companies, they face the problem of last mile delivery, whereby the last mile is where you have got the highest cost in the entire supply chain for the delivery equation out there. And I think solutions like this would definitely be a game changer for those elements. Also, just wanted to know, are this ground station, are they mobile? Can you like carry them from one place to another? Are those mobile by nature?
Yes. In EVA, at least, the product portfolio that we have, one of the highlight is the drone truck. These are trucks, whatever the V station that we manufacture, it's a container. So these containers are the standard containers that are available in the market, and hence they can be put on a truck and transported. Now imagine, take the case of agriculture. In India, it's well known that the unit land ownership is very less when you compare it to the Western countries.
Right.
And one of the, for drone service providers, this means that they need to get in touch with as many landowners as possible to break even or to recover the cost. But then the problem with the agriculture drones is only one thing, that it is huge and bulky.
Yes.
If they're carrying 20 liters or 15 liters of spray and insecticide, imagine how big the whole drone must be. The maximum takeoff weight is 25 kilos, 40 kilos, and sometimes even 50 kilos. So if you're carrying 3 to 4 bulky drones, you cannot fit them inside your car. And leave alone, if you can't fit them inside a car, you take multiple cars and move around villages, meeting your clients. So it's much more efficient to have a drone truck from where you can not only carry all of this, but also launch the drone at a press of a button from the truck. You don't find takeoff and landing spots in the Kheti. It might land on a place and might damage.
Absolutely.
So a place where it can be launched directly from the truck and recovered and controlled, and hence the mobility and overall operational efficiency.
Wow, brilliant. So it's an ecosystem within itself when we look at that framework, right? So it's quite fascinating to see where the drone technology is heading. And that brings me on to questions like, when people think about drone industry, they see only drone pilots or becoming a drone pilot as just the only career options. Could you enlighten our students as to what are those different career options within the drone ecosystem itself?
Okay, just like let's take an IT job. Drone piloting itself is having the ability to climb the ladder. In an IT job, you become, an IT analyst, and then an associate, then a manager, and then probably, C-level executive. pretty similarly, it is now the corporate ladder is coming up. You start as a drone pilot, you become an assistant drone pilot, and then you become the field operations manager. And then if you're operating a pure drone company, then you become the chief pilot or the chief field operations manager or the chief operations guy, CXO. That is how it has become, just purely by increasing your qualifications. That is there. Even in the IT job, you have to do it. You, for example, are qualified in 25 kilograms, and when the regulations for certifications come up in India, you can qualify in 150 kilograms. Right. And then beyond that, you have drone taxi companies that are coming up. When these drone taxi companies come up, they would need to certify the drones locally, and you need test pilots. So the potential for these drone pilot alone is multiple levels. Secondly, when you want to work in a drone company, you just drone pilot for now is a very attractive job. But then there are verticals outside of that. You need testing engineers, you need maintenance people. When we have literally millions of drones fly in the sky in 2023, you also need support staff. Yeah. And the day doesn't end when the pilot takes off and lands. He needs to be supported by the field guys there. The drones needs to be maintained, and the drones need a supply chain that has to come along with it. What will earlier, I don't think there would have been so many patents filed on batteries, but now they are, and specifically lithium polymer, lithium ion. So you also need technicians who are good in aerodynamics, technicians or R&D engineers who specialize in UAVs, different categories. One of the engineers may have a specialty in VTOL, but then you need people who specialize in fixed wing category, in multi-rotors. And then you have entirely new technologies coming up in the form of hydrogen powered cells, fuel cells that are powering aircraft. You need traditional petrol engine or an aviation engine powered aircraft. Who's going to do all that? We don't have the people for that. And good companies like Jain Aerospace, who's part of the consortium at EVA, are training people across the country. There are several training institutions across the country. You can take a look at the Digital Sky portal in DGCA, and they give you information of the closest flight training organization where you can enroll yourself, get yourself a DGCA certified pilot license, with which you can get a job with some luck and qualification. So a lot of requirements are there, and then there are specialists also needed in aviation regulation. It's something that is easily overlooked, but a very important category. Wing, which is doing deliveries in US, Australia, and Finland, has a requirement for aviation regulatory lead, whose job is to just interact with aviation authorities across the world and then come up with regulations that favor the industry as a whole and then also their company. So every major company there is out flying drones, drone taxis, logistics drone, is having a separate department that takes care of regulatory requirements. Right. So that means lawyers can also jump into the aviation industry. You need people handling customs. A lot of inter-country trade is happening. Now it is coming in the form of fully built drones. In the future, with Atman,
yes.
And then there are PLI schemes in India with favorable manufacturing incentives provided by the state governments, such as Telangana. And we have proposals coming up in Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, and Haryana. Manipur is having its own programs coming up. All of this will lead to manufacturing in the local. If not, at least they will start assembly. So you need manufacturing engineers, assembly, process engineers who will be able to, have a sense of understanding of where the product would be used, and so their work is done in a more informed manner.
Brilliant. So there is this huge plethora of jobs which students could find themselves now in the drone sector, and definitely something which is beyond piloting. Now, essentially, when we look at jobs, we need to understand that yes, we need the right knowledge, but we also need the right skill sets. Now, in a job like IT, it's something skill set mapping is very easy. You need to know coding, you need to be good with computers, and more or less that job is something which is ready for you with those skill sets. But within the drone ecosystem, it's very difficult to map as to what kind of skill sets do an XYZ individual need. So, can you sort of enlighten us on those points as to what type of skill sets are required?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because for the pilot, it's a simple thing. He needs to get the certification done, and ergo he's ready to fly for a company. That answers 50% of the question, because most of them are looking at becoming a drone pilot, while the rest of it is quite difficult to answer because we don't have that sort of a standardization that is available for the drone piloting. So first thing that counts when you jump into a drone industry is the previous experience. What have you done? Someone who has developed robotic arm in a robotic company could be a good fit for a drone port that is looking to develop a new product with robotic arm. So the arm for the engineers per se, the experience is the R&D engineers' experience of the projects that they worked previously is going to count the most. But then there are standards that are yet to come for maintenance. You have clear standards established in the traditional aviation.
Yes.
They're yet to come in the future aviation.
True. So yeah, moving on to the future talks now. Something, because you are associated with the industry so closely, how far are we from achieving hyper local deliveries? When can I get my next pizza from Pizza Hut on the drone?
Depends on your location. Some areas are going to have hyper-local deliveries faster than the others. But these e-commerce will be happening the last. In general, it's different. Again, if you take the case of Saudi, the EVA is doing food delivery ahead of medical delivery. But if you take the case of India, medical delivery is ahead of food delivery. In general, it is going to be first medical delivery, and that is happening right now at smaller phases. It will be scaled up next year, and it will have probably even, I would say, it would implement. It has the power to mitigate the existing medical logistics network by a fraction. Drones are not going to eliminate your last mile medical logistics, but they're going to have to work with them.
Right.
But I would say by at least 2024, 25, a fraction that is 10 to 20% of the existing medical network can easily be done by drone, a nationwide network, for sure. Such talks are not only happening in India, it's happening in UK, it's happening in Turkey, in the capital of Georgia. Visibly, it is going to be done by EVA. 15 drone stations across the capital city, providing a network. In the case of China, it has been happening from 2020, early 2020. I know Antwerp has 25 stations and 50 aerial routes. The city of Hangzhou, Zhejiang province, last year. For medical deliveries, we are going to see them sooner than later, followed by food delivery, followed by e-commerce delivery.
Yeah.
And that will be end 2020s. And I'm thinking 2027, 28. Some areas are going to implement it faster than the other, and even inside the country, some regions faster than the
others.
Right. We all expected US to do it first with Amazon and DHL, UPS, but it was Ghana or some underdeveloped African country that allowed the drone delivery to happen first. BVLOS condition. 2 days back, Zipline posted that they have completed 200,000 medical deliveries. No other country can boast about these numbers.
I mean, I saw Zipline. Zipline is one of my go-to training videos as to how they do the blood delivery across different areas within the Rwanda region. So that itself is where obviously where we are heading. I mean, what you have done recently with ICMR, with vaccination points as well, itself talks about, yes, it is going to be medicine first, and then to a certain extent food, and then later on to e-commerce. Right. My next happening question to you, Sid, and I'm sure that this should get you excited. How far is Sid away from sitting and flying in a drone taxi?
Quite close, I would say. When I go back to Europe, my interactions with the drone taxi companies are going to restart. Been paused with the projects in India, but then mid-November to beginning of December, I'm going to resume talks with the giants of drone taxi industry. Probably by 2024, I can say, with the Paris Olympics coming, Volocopter is going to debut there. It's not exactly a drone taxi. You'll still find a pilot, but the ultimate aim is by 2026 or 27, Volocopter wants to automate completely. Right. So the first step is always to bring the confidence for the regulators after the certification is to fly with one pilot. But in the case of EHang, it is already starting to happen. They have been certified in multiple countries, undergoing trials now. Pretty soon, you could see EHang ahead of companies like Joby Aviation or others that are working in, drone taxi field. But EHang is likely to happen, and when that happens, between Volocopter and EHang, I can fly the aircraft for sure. Sit in the aircraft and for the first time experience flying inside a helicopter kind of a setup.
Right.
Not have to fly it, but just sit and experience it. I've only been in a helicopter when I've flown it. This would be the first time. I'm really looking forward for that. I think even in Volocopter's case, you could have paid like $100 and you would have gotten a joyride. That was a pre-booking offer that they released early this year. So it's happening. It's going to happen. 2024, it is going to happen in Europe.
Definitely. I think sometimes we'll definitely find those on Ola, Uber rides as well at one day for sure. Yes. Definitely, it could save us from a lot of traffic out here in Mumbai for sure. Yes. It will definitely be
Mumbai, Bangalore, all the traffic places notorious for traffic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They do it. But then before all that, we need things like what Daybest is doing for ICMR or what the EVA consortium is doing here in India. And we need to move slowly but very steadily, demonstrate that smaller drones carrying smaller payloads are safer for the regulators to trust, allow us to set up an infrastructure, an aerial infrastructure. And with that, when they start seeing multiple drones in the sky, you also need other elements to come in, like what Viorius is doing with fleet operations management. And then you need people like Leo Peter Charles to train lakhs of drone pilots and maintenance engineers. And then you need someone to forefront all this and say, I'm going to operate what could be possibly the nation's largest known commercial drone fleets, with no such prior experience in the whole world to learn and replicate from. So all of these projects, when they become successful, will give the confidence to the government that, yes, we can increase the weight category from 25 to maybe 150 kilograms, and who knows, beyond that. And so drone taxis may even begin fly in India. Given the rate at which the regulation is evolving, it could happen in India sooner than it happens in Paris Olympics.
Right. For sure. Fingers crossed for that. And definitely, we are heading towards quite an optimistic drone ecosystem, not only in India, but also across different parts of the world. Now, Sid, coming on to the very exciting part of our talk show, it's called as the rapid fire round.
Yeah.
So,
looking forward to it.
Yeah. Couple of questions, very quick and crisp answers. So, my first question to you is, what is that one thing which you started to do in this pandemic, which you were not doing previously?
I think I've not intensely cooked as much as I've cooked during this pandemic period.
Right. So definitely a enhancement in your cooking skills right out there.
Enhancement a lot, and I have fans. I can probably say in fans in France who have tasted my rasam.
Right.
So I think I can boast about my rasam making skills. Yeah. Thanks to the pandemic, and I've learned a lot in cooking South Indian specialties.
Definitely. Brilliant. I'd like to sort of have that recipe as well. Right. Moving on to my next question. What is the one thing which you like or you love and hate about drones?
About drones?
Yes.
What I hate about drones is the regulation. Any country, anyone, you ask them, they're going to do this. And I even did my thesis on the same topic. I've scientifically verified by conducting a survey that regulation is the biggest hurdle in the countries that I did the survey. So regulations is something that I hate. What I love is is that people look up to drone technologies, and then being a part of it, I also receive the spotlight sometimes. So that is what I love about this industry.
Brilliant.
Yes, a lot of travel.
Oh, that comes with you, for sure.
In this period, despite the pandemic, I've been able to travel 20 different countries inside Europe and 7 states in India. A lot of travel I would not have done if not for the drone industry.
Definitely. As I've started, you are the man on the road. You're always traveling. Right. My next question to you is, how many times have you yourself crashed drones?
Oh, thankfully none. I've seen people crash it, but myself, no. It's a costly technology and you don't want to crash it.
Right.
But it happens. What can we do? It sometimes happens. I know a company which was using drones for sanitization at the peak of COVID. And in nighttime, when you sanitize, there aren't people much out there in the streets. But then you have the sheer chaos in which the streets of India are in. A tarpaulin, that is in front of the shops, got stuck inside the drone's propeller when it was rotating at a very fast speed, and then it toppled the whole drone and it crashed in less than a fraction of a second. Costly equipment was crashed in front of the owner's eyes. So it happens, but it has not yet happened with me.
Right. Good. I hope that record continues with you. Right. So, talking about, drones, what is your favorite drone? What is that something which you like? Yeah.
Oh, for me, the favorite drone would be the eHands drone taxi. It looks a little unsafe, but it's my favorite drone. My favorite drone is a taxi. Let me put it that way.
There you go. I'm imagining your future vehicle of travel. So that's right out there. Right. So my final question to you is, if Sid was not into drones, then what Sid would have done?
I would have been an R&D engineer. That was the aim. I would have probably done a master's in engineering rather than business. That would have been the route that I would have taken.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that insightful talk. And very, very good insights about what is currently happening in the drone space and what is expected in the future. As always, it's a pleasure to have you and sort of talk with you on different aspects of the drones. And thank you, Sid, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Made me feel like a celebrity, especially with the last rapid fire round. But thank you very much. Thank you enough. You're doing a wonderful job in a very interactive way, very interesting way. You're passing the passion that we have in the aviation industry to the next generation that is looking towards the aviation industry. And you're probably one of very few avenues where they can look up to and follow. And I'm very, very happy to be part of this program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for it.